Okay, you little pickle ticklers, this one's been a long time coming. I'm gonna make today a comprehensive video. Got my coffee, ready to do it, baby. Gonna make a very detailed video about how to do the rocker arm job in a Promaster. This would apply to your 2014 through 21 Promasters, and in fact, most 2011 through roughly 2018 Pentastars found in Jeeps and trucks and cop cars and minivans and Journeys and 200s and 300s and so forth and so on. I'm also going to split out a section of this video as a separate video, just how to get the upper intake off, which is something you need to do if you're doing the spark plugs, or if you're doing a variety of things, if you're doing the oil pressure sensor that lives in the oil cooler underneath, and a few other jobs. That'll be a separate video. Now, you're going to start complaining now because this video is going to be like, Jesus Christ, why I gotta watch an hour video to watch a fella do bolts one at a time? Well, some of you need bolts one at a time. How detailed should I be? How much should I leave it up to you? I'm gonna try and put all the important things, and I'll try and chapterize it such a way that you'll be able to skip around to the important shit, you know, when you figure it out. Getting the intake off a Pentastar isn't particularly difficult, and David Pike at Motor City Mechanic has a great old video where he does it blindfolded, because if you work on Chryslers all day, you do this job a lot. You'll need your basic hand tools. You will need some specialty tools to do the rocker arms, which is really what we're after here. I will show you those specialty tools here in a minute. They're found on Amazon and they're under 20 bucks. There's a couple other normal tools that you'll need that you're unlikely to have in your toolbox. A 24 millimeter, a couple of, you know, stuff like that. And some funky extensions and crap like that. But basically you probably have all this stuff. All right, let's get started. In this video, I have an assistant. I have Derek, who's going to be my hands, although I'll do some of it. But that allows me to film and make it, you know, because if you've seen any of my other 300 videos on Promasters, I'm terrible at this as far as camera and thing, and I'm doing it all with one hand because I'm holding my phone in the other and something else in the other. All right, and as always, there will be a few dick jokes peppered in here and there. All right, let's get on with it, shall we? All right, I'm going to give you an overview of what this looks like to do your rocker arms. Your rocker arms, as you know, live under the valve covers and the camshaft and the whole thing. I'm not going to explain that to you, but basically, by removing this, and we're going to remove most of the intake tract, and we're going to remove the upper intake, that gives us enough access. We'll take this air intake hose out. You do not have to take the cowl apart or this bulkhead support, radiator core support out. You do not have to remove the bottle, although we'll unbolt it and just kind of push it out of the way. You do not have to drop the coolant, nor do you have to drop the oil to do this job. You do not need to get the van up in the air for any reason. It's all done from the top. It is pretty tight on this side where we're going to be doing the chain and the phasers and all that stuff, but it's not undoable. You'll see. I'll prove it to you. Who are you going to believe, me or your own eyes? All right. I suppose the first step is we're going to take the air intake tract off, which you'll see here now. Almost all this stuff requires an 8, at least all the hose clamp stuff. You'll find you can actually leave this on. See, I should have told you. Go ahead and tighten that back up. There's an easier way. That's fine. There'll be 2 Phillips screws that hold this plastic piece to the firewall. One in the bottom right and one in the upper left. Those Phillips screws will allow you to take that off. The easiest way to get that one down there on this piece is a long screwdriver. Or you can do that, you know, if you're fancy. If you're a fancy lad. And simply by wiggling it, yep, it'll come right off. It does that. Okay, so Derek is taking off. That's a breather tube. It has that yellow ring around it. It's a squeeze and then pull up, the ring releases. It's kind of finicky, but it'll come. There you go. Yep. And what you can do is just feed that up out of the way over there. You can. It's non-critical. It's going to come off with the valve cover anyway. So now Derek took off all 4 of these. Well, he took off the first one, which is the intake air temp sensor. That one is the throttle actuator. It has a single squeeze and slide. That is the map sensor. Pick for that. You'll need a pick for this. That is the map sensor, and the way the throttle sensor comes off is that gray piece slides back, then it's a squeeze and you push it back. It can sometimes help to get a screwdriver here and push this way to make it happen. This is going to be another one you'll be taking off. That's the other air intake. And this one, which I didn't film, was this little guy here. It's just a squeeze and pull. That's the intake air temp sensor. Getting this one off will be very easy. He's going to pull the red piece back. Yep. And then it's just a squeeze and pull towards you. Yep. Now getting these things apart, I have a little tool for which looks like a little duckbill pliers that pushes them apart, but you can just get a screwdriver in there. And in fact, because I happen to know this van quite well, I'm going to assume that I could probably do this by hand. Like that. A stubby screwdriver will get that too if you have trouble with it. Yep. You don't need to take those hose clamps all the way off, just loosen them. And out she comes. There's no reason to struggle. Why suffer? Whoops. It backs up into the corner, and this right end comes out first towards you, like so. And then out she comes. The next step would be to push back. This is the PCV valve. I may be able to get it just with my hand, but you would just push there and it'll come back. You'll see. PCV hose. He-Man will probably get it. Look at him go. Very nice. This is it's the fresh air intake. It leads to the cabin air filter here, and it's what the fan draws fresh air in for the heating and air conditioning system. It's pretty straightforward how it comes out. There's a 10mm bolt here, and a more complicated 10mm bolt there, the one going up and down. This bolt will come out, and this is the washer squirter fill. There's a trick to getting these two out. Once you do, and you take this little screw out, because this thing has to slide out, there's 4 10mm nuts that hold it to the firewall. See if that's small enough to get that. You don't have much room to swing, and more importantly, the bolt is going to crash as it comes out. Nice. All right, same story over here, and this one is harder. This little standoff right there makes a good wedge, fulcrum point. Yep, that's how I do it. There we go. Look at that. Bam. Behind the big oval air intake here are 4 bolts that hold this whole assembly onto the firewall. And to get behind there, you've got to take the cabin air filter out. Now, in true Fiat fashion, the single most frustrating thing you're ever going to do in your life is to get these 2 Phillips screws out. One there and one there. And I can see that because I've been here before, I replace those with normal sized Phillips screws. When you first do this in yours, if it's virgin, these are very small, and you won't have any room to put you won't have a screwdriver the right length to put a screwdriver and get it down there. Now Derek's got fancy tools, so he probably will. One time I even took out this grill to give myself space to have a real screwdriver. Let's see what he comes up with. This ought to be fun. Ah.
Put in here.
Oh, yeah, all right, if you're that guy.
I just don't have any.
So you might be able to get it with something like that. Let's see how I do. I'm not going to tell him, though. It's awkward, but these just thread into sheet metal, so they're not like they won't be super tight. You can see that these just go into nutserts. So. Oh, that was working good anyway. This next part's going to require a little ingenuity on your part, you the doer of such things. As you can see, a 10 in the lower right, a 10 in the upper right, a 10 in the lower left, and there's a hidden 10 way the fuck back there on the firewall. Once again, if you omit it when you go back in, nothing will happen.
Go ahead. The hardest one first.
All right, he's going in. There is what this is in here is a water drain. That's just water. It's what drains the water that collects here. And it goes down. It is just this rubber hose here. And that the hose itself can just stay in there. It'll have to kind of walk sideways. Once you start moving it, you'll see what it does. The trick is to get it over this. There you go, just like that. All right.
Wow, look at all that.
I know. Now, it's going to be a lot easier to do this because most of what we're going to be doing with these rocker arms is at the tips of the valve covers, as one would expect. All right. Our next step is going to be get the manifold, the upper manifold off, and like so. These two white things in here are my patented nipples, which are available for sale. If you were to type in Promasters only in nipples into YouTube, you'll be able to see Kip's Nips, also known as. What they do, as you can see, is keep water from getting down in those two wells and rusting the two bolts. This one, because I've been here before and I put those nipples in, we should have no problem getting those two bolts out. If those bolts are rusty or they'll just be nubs, you are not totally fucked, but you're mostly fucked. I have several videos on how to get them out. You can, in fact, take the upper and lower intake manifold out as a package and then drill it out on a bench, or on a bench press, or drill press rather, if they're bad enough, or you can drill them out for the top. It's a big topic. But anyway, that's what those things. Go ahead, yank my nips. Look at the engineering that I put. Oh, baby. Is it cold in here, or is it just me?
No, it's just you.
Now, these bolts, the manifold bolts, and a lot of the bolts in here are all 8s. All the valve cover bolts are 8s. You need to have this, which is a 1/8" drive, very thin wall 8. Why? Because to get down these wells, your regular 3/8 drive socket's going to be too fat. And if you want to use a deep socket too, because if the socket falls off on there or gets stuck down in that hole, now it's a problem of extracting the socket. That's going to be fun. I know what to do with that one. But at any rate, this is an absolutely required tool. I'm sorry, 1/4 inch. And as thin a wall deep socket you can. And I would recommend you get something 6-point rather than 12-point because a lot of these are somewhat rusty and delicate. That's a requirement for this job. Okay, so I want to talk for a second about these bolts. These bolts are proprietary to Chrysler. You're not going to find this at Harbor Freight or any place like that, unfortunately. It's possible you might find them online, but this is a dealer thing. I'll put the part number, and they're a whopping like $8 a piece. It's really criminal. That's what the replacement will look like from Chrysler. But there's nothing you can do, and that's a weird thread, some kind of, it looks like a wood thread, and it is, of course, going from plastic to plastic. One here, one there, one there, one there, one in this little well here, and that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's a thing called a triangle bracket back here with 2 10s that hold the triangle on, and there'll be 2 more bolts at the front. Do I have an intake line around as a visual aid? I do not, but we'll get there. We are going to not do the upper ones. We're going to do the triangle mount, or the triangle bracket and bolts, and then we're going to do the front. These two functions are actually quite difficult. Getting to the triangle bracket and getting those 2 off, and also it'll require some tricky stuff to get these 2 off the front. You'll see as we go along. All right, the way the triangle bracket works is going to be difficult to show up, but there's a single 13 that Derek has his socket on that grabs it from the side. That single 13 nut releases the coolant pipe that is captured by that nut, and then you'll pull the coolant pipe up a little bit and get to the 13 bolt below it. Well then, we're about to tackle the front 2 bolts, studs rather, that the upper intake manifold comes out onto. There's a 10mm here and a 10mm here, a nut on the end of a stud. Now I want to give you a couple of tips about this. This is actually somewhat tricky. Getting to this one won't be particularly difficult. You'll get a ratcheting wrench in there and you'll get that 10. The other one is occluded down here. This is what I have found. The way to get it off is you get it loose from the top and you stand in front of the van facing away from the van, and with your right hand you reach down in there, and what you can do is kind of cup your hand under and get the nut off that stud. I'm talking about the intake manifold stud. You'll get that off the stud, and when you go to do it back, put it back together, you'll cup my nuts in your hand, and you'll do this backward stand thing where you do it like that. Now this one is relatively easy, and when you drop that nut, you'll drop it into the fan shroud. All right, now here's the hard one. He's gonna learn that he can get that 10 in from the right-hand side. Yep. Once it gets loose enough, of course, the ratcheting wrench stops working. There he goes. Yay! Oh. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pull the upper intake, just because it'll make it because it makes filming easier. You'll see. Yep, that's all 7. Go ahead and pick up on that. All right. Now, if you chaos. If you have the oval air intake in the way this comes out is you're gonna. Oh, I should mention one thing. There is a brake vacuum hose that comes off the back of the intake manifold here and goes to the firewall right here. Yep. It is hard to see, but it is a simple squeeze and up and down squeeze and pull. And when it goes back on, same thing, push until it clicks. But you can see, or you might not be able to see, but there's squeezies there, and that's how it works. When this comes out with the oval in the way, what you would do is rotate it. You would rotate this end counterclockwise. Is that right? Yes. As you pick it up, rotate that whole thing counterclockwise. Then it'll barely clear there, and this little divot's there so it can, and then it just comes up and out. A little bit of oil and a little bit of even burnt-looking oil is fine. That manifold, very, very few problems with the manifold or the throttle body or the map sensor. In fact, I've never seen a map sensor go bad. What you're left with here is the intake exposed for all your pleasure. We are now going to work on getting the rear off first and then the front. You will need to remove the coil wires because obviously we're going to remove the coils so that the valve cover can come out. I guess I could talk about that now. The valve cover, rear valve cover, a few things have to come off for the valve cover to come out. One is the phaser actuators here. Another is the coils, which will come out with the coil wiring. Another is very important is the cam position sensor. This would apply to both heads. Has to come out for the valve cover to come off. And on the rear head, the PCV valve has to come out for the valve cover to come off because it traps. That rear PCV valve is going to be kind of a pain in the ass. Another thing for the valve cover to come out are these Christmas trees that hold the valve cover there. This one's been molested, but they look like this on both sides. That comes out so that the wiring can go out of the, can clear the valve cover. And lastly here is this rear coolant pipe. It's retained to 2 of the valve cover bolts that have long studs that come out of them with a couple of 10s. Pretty straightforward. And this pipe will you're going to be fighting with it a lot, but it just kind of lays up against the firewall. It just kind of gets out of your way. Not too bad. Another thing that's difficult is this plastic thing that just carries these 2 wires. The front one is obviously easy, but you'll have to get in a pry tool under this Christmas tree, and it can be a bitch. You'll basically just end up yanking on it and smashing your fingers and hating life. Always fun. Coils are just retained by a 10 millimeter bolt on one side, and then the coil, you'll grab the coil from the base and hold the boot with it, and it'll just come out there with that lovely sound. The way the coil wires come out is very simple. It's just a squeeze and pull. Yours may have a red slider, which is a 2-stage. These don't have the slider. It varies. But anyway, the slider comes back and then it's squeeze and pull. You can leave the wiring on the cam position sensor if you like. A single T, I believe it's a T30 that retains it. The T30, and then the cam position sensor will come out. And coils come out like this. It's not complicated. And then as you pull up on the coil, grab the boot with it. So the boot, yes, exactly. So the boot doesn't separate. And there you go. And there is a coil and a boot. The hard part is going to be getting these brackets off or out of the way. This will rotate out of the way so you can get to that bolt below it. And the way you do that, first step would be to take off those 2, they look like 13, no, they're 10s, that hold this coolant pipe onto the brackets here. I should add that these bolts will often break. And again, in true Fiat fashion, if both bolts are missing, you know what happens? Nothing. That pipe doesn't do anything. It's held on both sides. It's kind of superfluous. Right there is what we're after. We need to get that loose because it needs to pivot so that it'll clear the valve cover. And yes, you can just bend it out, but you won't be able to bend it back in, so I don't recommend you do that. What you really need to do is go underneath, which I'm about to do, and loosen the bolts. You'll see. Okay, kids, we are under the vehicle here, and I'm going to attempt to show you what I'm after. There's probably other ways to do this, but I'm just going to do it like this. So as you can see, right here, this is the bracket that comes off the base of this cross coolant pipe that carries coolant from the water pump to the radiator. Yeah, it's the return, it's a primary return. I'm going to loosen that up there. That's going to allow this pipe to come loose, and then there's another nut under it that it's going to allow that bracket to come loose. I may not be able to show this particularly well, but I'm going to try. There's other tools that you could use. It is a 13. Now, in fact, you don't have to take this entirely off. You can just take it very loose. Try that driver's side bracket and see if it'll wiggle side to side.
There you go.
Yeah, it does. All right. Okay, now as you can see, I've got those loose from the bottom, and being able just to do that is going to make a huge difference. They're quite long. Oh, that is the daintiest little... Oh, that's cute. They're so cute when they're babies. Yep. Yep, and same story, the one on the rear head. What we're going to do now, kids, is the PCV valve. Now that is a, we could take this hose out of the way, like that. That is the PCV valve itself, and it is retained by a little T15 or T20, I'll tell you here in a second. One up there and one down on the bottom. It looks very simple, but is deceptively difficult because you'll have this pipe in your way and so on. It's just the kind of thing you got to worry at. But the valve cover will not come off with the PCV valve in place. So as you can see, you little monkeys watching this video, that rear coolant pipe, which is a heater return hose, is bolted to the two center valve cover bolts with two 10mm, was it 10s or 8s?
10s.
They were 10s? Okay. Loose. Yep, you can see that goes over those two studs. If memory serves, you may be fighting with the rear leftmost valve cover bolt, just because of the shape of the firewall there. It's an important part. There is a spot here where this little rubber tang comes out, and what that is for is exactly what you think. That's your pry point. You do not have to take the cam phasers off the end, the actuators. Yep, that was actually quite easy because I believe I've been in here before. So, as the thing comes off, it will not come straight up because it's trapped by the PCV valve thingy. So what'll happen is, the left side, as we're looking at it here, will tip up first, and then it'll kind of back off at an angle. It's kind of hard to describe, but you're going to see it here in a second. So there's still one holding it. I should also add there are these two pins that they won't be present on this one that guide the valve cover down that often break, which is fine. Let them break. Fuck them. I don't care. There's also wiring that goes, that should be off actually now that I think about it. There's a channel of wiring on the back that sort of lays on the valve cover. It does have Christmas tree fasteners that hold it to the valve cover. Maybe that's what's winding this up. Oh, I can see it is. Feel around the back there for a Christmas tree of wire. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, baby. Nice. Look at that. Valve coverific. And there, ladies and gentlemen, is your Bank 1 camshafts. How exciting. And phasers. I'm not going to film the front. The front is much easier. Just loosen the bolts and away it comes. The rear is the hard one. And it's, of course, because it's farther away from you as well. All right, kiddies, here's your special tools that you're going to need to do the rocker arm job. You're going to need a long breaker bar. I believe that's a 24-inch. You're going to need a 27 socket. This is somewhat... this socket, by the way, is just to rotate the engine. You can actually do it with a crescent wrench if you're intensely motivated, which I am not. You're going to need this, which is a 36mm socket. Now, there's a lot of different ways to get this, but what's important about this is it's quite shallow in this dimension. A long one won't work because you're going to be up against the firewall. This is, I would call that 2 inches in maximum depth. So you're going to need that. It doesn't really matter what the drive is, but you're going to be putting 110 foot-pounds of force on this, so you're looking for something like that. That's straight off of Amazon. You can buy them individual. This is the special camshaft phaser toolkit for Chrysler. Mama, that's what that is. This tool set, there's a ton of them. They're like literally less than 20 bucks on Amazon. What comes in it are 2 blocks like this that lock the cams together, so which is really only there so you can use that to get the cam phaser bolts out. They're labeled left and right. You get these. You actually get 3 in any given kit, but one of them is for an older for the pre 2014, 2013 and back version of the engine that you never use. So you use this, which will be doing the front camshaft or camshaft chain, timing chain, and this one with the slot that does the rear. These part numbers, they're on there. They're all kind of the same, but you would figure it out. And in fact, you don't absolutely need these tools to do the job. You do need these. Well, now you could get away without that too. This also comes with a grenade pin, which is only for the front head. I put this on a piece of wire so it can't fall and I can't lose it because they're quite spindly. So Derek here is going to demonstrate. What he's doing is going down there on me, on my engine, on my tool with his tool. Funny every time. He's getting on the crank snout bolt, which is a 27. And we are only going to rotate this engine clockwise. And all we're going to do, the whole purpose of this, is to get the engine in its neutral position, in its top dead center position. That is indicated by some marks that are on the faces of the cam phasers. And the important thing to know is on the front head, the 2 arrows need to be pointing at each other. On the rear head, there'll be 2 lines that point to each other. When that's happening, that means that the front head is at its rest position and the rear head is at top dead center, its rest position.
I'm in.
A proctology mirror may help you, especially on the rear head.
I see an arrow. It's pointing straight up right now.
All right, so you only have about 90 degrees to go. I could also get under there with simply a long flat screwdriver and do it from the starter ring as well. Now on the front head here, we should see, if the camera can focus, 2 arrows pointing to each other. I assume we do. And the same story over here. You'll see 2 lines directly at the center of the cam. That may be out of focus, but pointing to each other. As I say, these blocks, all they do is make it so that it's easy for you. That's for the rear, with the lettering facing up. And that, if you got it right, it should basically slide in, although you may have to jockey the cam a little bit. Now, if it doesn't jockey in there, there's 2 ways to go about it. You can either keep cranking on the crank snout, or I can give you a crescent wrench, which you can get on the cam itself. Each cam has a flat that's designed to accept a crescent wrench that allows you to wiggle it a little bit. And you can flip those upside down if for some reason they don't go in. It's optional. So you can see what that would look like as the tool itself sticks through on each side. Pretty straightforward. All right, kids, here's this tool I forgot to mention, the paint marker. What we're going to be doing, all right, what you're going to be doing is marking the link that's directly above this slot here. You can also mark it here on the back, but it's pretty obvious which is the link that mates to the cam. The point is that we're going to be able to get this back together. And I'm going to add quite a bit of paint because I enjoy it, but also because more the merrier. And there will be a little bit of parallax error here as you're looking down on this thing. So you want to make sure, especially in the back. I may have to do it with the mirror. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. All I'm doing is I'm carefully finding the slot, which I know you can't really see too well, but I'm finding the slot and I'm gonna paint the link that corresponds to the slot. We are now going to crack, we're going to do the rear first. It is more difficult than the front, although the front has its own issues, but the rear is basically more difficult because you're leaning over and all that fun stuff. This is an AC line, which you can move if you need to. We may or may not need to. And yes, this bolt here sticking out of the firewall is going to be a problem. Will often be in the way. If it is, you can remove it. You could put it back later if you want. It doesn't do anything. I don't know what it does. I suppose it holds this fiber shield in the area. What else? I'm going to put the crescent wrench just as an auxiliary means to hold it. And you can compress the foil backing. That's not a big deal. And again, the block is helping you. Yep. The strength of the plastic tool is probably enough to do this job for you, but I don't know. It just feels like a good idea to hang on to the cam. These are the tone wheels for the camshafts. That cam sensor sits in between them in that bolt, and a cam sensor is actually double. It reads both. You can see that there's metal paste, which would be ferric, magnetic metal, will collect on the magnetic bumps of the cam. You can just wipe that off with a rag. It's a little bit abrasive, but just be gentle. You can wipe it clean if you want, although it doesn't really matter. And that amount of it is perfectly normal. It's almost like a paste when it comes off of here. Like that. It's just a magnetic paste, not a big deal. Okay, kiddies, well, here's what we're going to do. So all four of the main phaser bolts or phaser actuators or whatever you want, oil control valves is their technical name, have been broken free. But I'm going to go ahead and have Derek here just crack the cam caps or cramming of the cram caps just to get them loose, because this is actually somewhat of a delicate proposition. These bolts, as you can see, hopefully, if I light them up good, are T30s, but if you strip one of those, you end up there you go. You end up having to worry at it with a crescent wrench or something, and it's a real pain in the ass. You want to be super careful as you're cracking those loose. They're a lot easier on the front. On the back, they're a little bit more difficult. The trick is to use something like this, which is something I bought special. This is just a high quality T30, and it happens to be on the big one. And you want to be as 90 degree into the head of the Torx as you can. You don't want to be doing it sideways or something, because they're pretty delicate. They don't have a lot of torque on them. I want to say the spec when I go back to do it is 89 inch-pounds, but it feels like if they've never been off, they're more than 89 inch-pounds, but we're going to find out. All right, big man. There's no special way you have to do it, and all you have to do is get them loose, because once they're loose, we're going to use a power tool. Yep, that's what you'll hear. You'll hear that single crack. What Derek is doing with his left hand is pushing down a little bit in just to keep that thing aligned. Or so he thinks. That's the fun of it. We can do the whole engine if you want. It doesn't really matter. While you got it out, you're in the groove. I'm going to take this opportunity to say something now, which is true. What this video's purpose really is to show you how to get the valve cover, get it down to the valve covers. There are much better videos on doing the rocker arm job on YouTube than I'm able to produce. The one I use all the time, or that I refer people to all the time, is by Motor City Mechanic, who's a fellow named Dave in Georgia, who's a Chrysler mechanic and does lovely videos. And it's a two-part on how to do this. Now, he does it on a stand engine so that you can see everything real nice. And I would recommend that. I mean, why are you watching this crap, this low-budget garbage? But we're gonna go through it, and because what's important here is what's different about the Promaster than doing this exact same job on a Journey or a Jeep or a Challenger or a truck or whatever. Obviously, the engines are all the same, but the idiosyncrasies of getting the valve covers off is is the reason why you're here, or it's just my pretty face. So both oil control valves or phaser bolts or whatever you want to call them are out, and now what's going to happen is, with the tool still in place, you're just going to move both of them back off the camshafts, and they'll just kind of fall back. You may have to wiggle them a little bit, and I'll get the crescent wrench. It's right here. It's handy. But you'll see that, yep, and the back one too. Now the chain may snap a little bit and take up some slack, but the goal is just they literally need to be a millimeter off the off the tips of the cams, and then the cams can come out. In the front, you'll see when we do that, you have to rock each one back about 30 degrees, and that puts the cam in the park position. As you can see here, they're marked. It says 4E, and it has an arrow, which will point to the front. They also have these little notches in them that will go to the front. That's how these four sit in there on the exhaust side. On the intake side, the label will be near you. So I guess it's on the outside of the head. All right, kids, here our cams are out. I've wiped one lobe clean. We've already talked about the metal debris on the tone ring, but that's what it looks like. There are all our rockers just sitting there, and you're just gonna pull them out, nothing to know. What you're gonna do once the rocker is off, you're going to test the lifter, and this is the test. You push down on it. If it's rock solid, it's good. If it's springy, it's bad. Maybe we'll find a springy one here somewhere, just for the sake of the video. No, these are all good. It seems. It's not uncommon to find a few bad ones per engine. When I do an estimate, I usually put 4 or 6 lifters on there. All so far in this head, all of them are good. All right. Oops. All right, here in the Gojo bucket of justice, what I've done is I've had the lifter soaking for just a few minutes. All you want to do is get all the air bubbles out. It isn't going to matter. But that's what you're going to replace them with. So grab a lifter, young man. I'm sorry, I keep saying lifter. I mean roller or rocker. So you don't really even have to think about how they go, because the ball end of the rocker is going to go over the lifter. It's going to be obvious. And while it's there, yep, you're doing exactly what I would have done. Give it a little spin just to make sure that it's driving oil into the entire needle bearing assembly of the rocker. As you put the exhaust in, you're going to basically use this righting and these 2 alignment holes. As I was telling him, you literally can't put this in backwards, because the way the phaser mates to the end of the camshaft is just with 1 pin, so it would always be right. But still, where it needs to be is with these holes facing up and the righting facing up, where it says 3.6 and RE, right exhaust. Get it? It'll have a natural place where it lays flat against the bearings, because all the lobes are parked. All right, this is our torque chart, which you'll find all over the place if you look for it online. Not a big deal. 84 inch-pounds for the bearing caps on the camshaft, and 118 foot-pounds on the oil control valves, these guys here. And that's why you'll need this, a big-ass torque wrench. Longer the better, because 118's, you know, that's a serious beef. As you can see, this particular chart is printed backwards. So in theory, you'd look at it like that, but it's pretty obvious. This would be as you're looking at it with the PCV thing there and a chain over here. But it's pretty obvious what they do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You would probably come up with that method of doing it, even if you'd never thought about it before. And it's the same on the other head as well, the same basic pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What you'll want to do is take the torque up in a couple of steps, because you just don't want to crank one side down to 84 and then the other side's popped up and it won't go on evenly. Just try and make them even. And 84 isn't much. You'll be surprised at how little it is and how like flimsy it feels. But it's enough to do the job. And to date, I've never had a bearing bolt back out or anything like that. It's not going to be an issue. To that end, you're going to come up with something more like this. That's a T30 in an 1/8 inch small, quarter. Thank you. Is that important?
Very.
I suppose so. That we're going to set to 89 inch-pounds.
Is it just one pass?
I'll go through and check them.
Okay.
Again, 84 is so low that you can go either way. And my God, if you put 89 on them, what would happen? I'm sure the whole engine would grenade. The answer is nothing would happen. If you put 13 on them, nothing would happen. As long as they don't come out of there and the camshaft doesn't fly out, what's going to happen? All right, kids, we have arrived at the difficult part. So I'm going to take some time with this, because this will be somewhat different than doing it on a charger where you can see everything and get to everything. The general gimmick with this is going to look something like this. We're going to pull the tool out from between the chains, which means the 2 phasers will kind of crash into each other a little bit. The chain's not under tension, but you won't be able to get, it's highly unlikely, although possible, that we would get them both on. If we use that plastic tool and compress the guide, which is really a tensioner, you may get enough slack to get both chains back on. But more than likely, what you're going to do is you're going to put the rear one on, because if you take this one out or otherwise release it, take the chain off of it, then obviously you got plenty of slack. You put the rear one on, and once it's on, you're going to put a crescent wrench here. And by holding this with one hand, the tool won't be here, you'll be able to push down, pushing the chain into the gear teeth so it can't slip. Then you put a little tension on it with your right hand, and that will bring it up and put enough slack in the chain where you can kind of finagle the other one on. Now, they're basically pretty close to where they're going to be, but it's going to be a process of you put the rear one on first, and then you've got the front one. As a matter of fact, I could just do this rather than talk about it. Is it pulling? No, it's not. Yeah. There we go. All right. So if I pull the tool out of here, and of course on the Promaster, the tool crashes into this AC line back here. But if you're a clever lad, which I am not, you can kind of do this action. There, I made it so it can't come out because I'm stupid. There. That. Okay, if I remove the tool, damn it, it's crashing into this AC line. All right, the tool is out. The rear one, if I take this phaser out entirely, here. Now I need to reline the chain up, and I can see it, and it looks right to me. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Now, of course, with only one, there's plenty of slack. So what I can do is grab the crescent wrench, which should be right here. Wander off. Oh, all right. And I can rotate this cam so that the pin. All right, kids, this is a super important part. These right here are your oil galley bolts, and you'll find other videos on the interwebs about them. But that the wrench is on, these will work themselves loose and bleed off oil pressure. They can be gotten if the sprocket is still on, but when they're not, just make sure these are tight. And if you wanted to put Loctite on them, you can. I don't think that's really necessary. Just make sure that they're tight. So you don't want to have that problem. All right, that's working. All right, I'm using the tool, and you'll hear it go squish, squish, squish as it moves the oil out of the tensioner. And you should be able to, as long as you keep your hand in here, to make sure that the chain, because if you put enough force on it, the chain will skip teeth. And you wouldn't want that, would you? The only tooth skipping I want, I pay for. See how that I'm drawing it forward? If you don't have the tool, in theory, you can also use like a screwdriver or something. There we go. See what the tool did? It did what it's supposed to do. It compressed the chain tensioner like that. So there's a point for the tool. Sometimes you can do it without. That time it was obvious. But I've already got the rear oil control valve in, and I'm going to put the other one in. That, by the way, is probably the hardest part of this entire job. Getting the rear one together. The front one is a bit easier, as you'll see here in a minute, because it has an actual tensioner that you can put a sort of a grenade pin in or release, and you'll have much more chain slack in the front. All right, we've got those cinched down more or less, and we're going to do the final torque on the rear. I am going to instruct you people, you little monkeys at home, to go ahead and cinch that down on there, to use the crescent wrench to your advantage. Yes, the plastic tool will be enough to put your 118 foot-pounds on this oil control valve, but it just seems like good policy to hold one. Yeah.
Backup. Calling backup.
Backup, exactly. It's going to preserve your plastic tool too. 118 pounds is a lot, man. You also want to watch for the chain to be moving around. It shouldn't, but as you see, the phaser wants to turn. So what I had going on often is this action where I can use my fingers there. There we go. Yep. See, I have bass player trained reflexes.
That was right there.
Okay. Lovely. All right. All right, now, the basic procedure is the same for the front head with a slight difference. So buried deep in the bowels down here is an actual chain tensioner that you need to release the ratcheting mechanism on. I can't stress enough that Motor City Mechanics videos on this show it all much, much, much better, but I'm gonna do what I can do because that's the kind of guy I am. And that's about as close as I can get to it with this camera. I'm gonna take the tool, which is this little right angle grenade pin that comes with the cam timing kit. And if you can see, let me give you some more light here. If you can see, I'm going down the side of the tensioner and I'm gonna turn it. I don't know if you can see there is a little hole there that this will right angle turn into. And now it's at a right angle to where I started. And if I pull up, it releases the ratcheting mechanism, and that will allow this guide to just fall back and put tons of slack in the chain. I have put a piece of mechanics wire on there only to make sure that that doesn't fall down in there. I suppose it's possible. It'd be pretty unlikely to fall down in the engine, but it certainly can't fall down in the engine with this annoying wire, which I can hook around something, or otherwise it's just shaped that it's not gonna fall. Okay, so now we're gonna do the front cams, getting the phasers back on. I would advise you, Derek, go ahead, just the front one, you're gonna need the crescent wrench because these cams are in park position. One thing I don't think we filmed correctly is when you take the phaser off, the cam is actually riding at a certain point on valve spring, so it's got a lot of tension on it. You need to move it forward about that far, about 30 degrees or so, and it goes into the park position, which it is in now. So we're gonna use a crescent wrench to pull this cam back at the same time putting on the front phaser, and then we'll deal with the rear phaser. You'll see. You'll see what I'm talking about. I think I told you how to do it wrong. That was the real problem. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. Okay. So what I'm doing, I can see the tensioner move, and now I've got it compressed, and I'm keeping pressure here. So now I should have enough chain slack, more or less. To make that fit on. Let's get a little bit of slack out of it here. This is something, you could also use a screwdriver for this tool if you have to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Any pokey thing that can just go push the...
It's just pushing the guide in, right?
Yep. Well, the guide is acting as the tensioner, basically. All right, run over and grab the phaser bolt and see if you can get that to start. Oh, baby. Oh, that's some sexy shit.
Ready?
Yep. All right, you little monkeys. That's basically it. The rest is fairly straightforward except for one thing that you don't know yet. So the valve covers each get a little dab of RTV right here, which is where the front cover meets the head, and you'll see the old RTV, and the same on the bottom side of the head. Here it'll be here, and there the same, and you'd see that. It matches up with the little ball thing, little square section. I have omitted it at times in the past, and the valve cover hasn't leaked, and once I did omit it, and the valve cover did leak, but you just put a dab of RTV there. It isn't super critical, but don't use too much because you don't want RTV getting into the engine if you can avoid it. But the rest of the procedure is to just basically the reverse. All right, you drunken little monkeys. Well, that was that. Let me spare you that action. It's a big job. It books at 8 hours. I usually charge 9 because frankly, there's often issues with it. And is there anything else to know? I don't think so. I'm glad we got to spend this time together. I'm glad I got to use my new fancy camera. I'm glad that many things have happened and also many things have not happened. All right, well, we'll see you. As you know, videos twice a week for your pleasure. I got some good stuff coming up. Not that crap you were just forced to watch. and we'll get together and we'll touch the tips. Love you. Bye.